Next, and I appreciate you all sharing your why.
One shot.
That wasn't too good either, right? Testing.
Put up to your mouth.
I see. Me and Mike have a love-hate relationship. All right, so we heard your why, and I want to go into shaping your vision as you are potentially elected to this position. So these next set of questions are going to be questions as if you were the legislator and how you would respond. So the first question, if I can start with Mayor Mulligan's, okay. The first question would be, what is your position on the Department of Homeland Security and ICE?
So, for those of you who don't know, the Department of Homeland Security actually covers the Coast Guard. And I'll get to ICE in a moment, but the Coast Guard has its only training center in the city of Cape May. So actually today I was at an event with the captain of the Coast Guard base in Cape May, and they have a lot of issues that we're going forward with. Actually, they just received $400 million to improve their facility in Cape May, so that's a big project. But also under Homeland Security is FEMA. And that is one of the biggest projects that I have been working on for the last 8 years for my community, is a seawall. We received $25 million in funding. That's working with state, local, and federal government to get things done. And frankly, one of the most important projects for my community. But that is exactly what I'll be working for all of South Jersey. You know, I was over in Salem, and they have a ton of flooding, of course, on the Delaware Bay and on the Delaware River. Obviously, on the shoreline, we have flooding that we need to work on. So I don't want to skip Homeland Security because that's really important. FEMA is very important to our communities. Getting to ICE, I started my campaign with a letter to the mayor of Minneapolis. And in that letter, I talked about how after the murder of Alex Creddy, we were trampling the Constitution. We were trampling states' rights. We were trampling judicial orders. And masked agents going through towns and even going after elementary school students. It was absolutely disgusting and un-American. And what I was reminded of is another president who said, immigrants are what make America great. That president was Ronald Reagan. How far we have fallen from that shining city on a hill. We have fallen so far from that. And what are we just simply asking for? We're asking for respect and dignity. You know these immigrants are in and amongst your communities. They're in our communities. They're all over South Jersey, and they are good people that are just looking for a pathway to citizenship. That is what we need to be working on. We have to majorly reform our immigration system, and yes, we have to majorly reform ICE. Thank you.
So let me be really clear and try to answer this question succinctly. It's important to know, as a former law enforcement officer of 27 years, to call ICE law enforcement is offensive. They have 42 days of training, where to be a police officer in New Jersey today, you have to have a background check, you have to have a medical screening, you have to have a mental health screening, then you have to go through 28 weeks of the academy. Then you have to have 6 to 8 weeks of field training afterwards. And if you want to be a detective investigator, you got to go back for another 8 to 12 weeks. So the bottom line is to call these people law enforcement is offensive, and they must be abolished now. So with respect to DHS, I know we're not really talking about all the other programs that they're responsible for. But one of the things I want to do as a former law enforcement officer, as a former prosecutor, is be put in a room with other former prosecutors who are members by the Speaker, by way of making a select committee, and let us investigate both the Trump administration for its illegal grift, and DHS for every memo, email, and everything in between where they directed these people out on the street to harm American citizens and to terrorize others. It must be done. And at the end of those 2 years, when we have a new president and a new attorney general, we will give those files to that person and we will tell her, go get your indictments, but get them on a state level in case they got some pardons in a safe somewhere. And that way now we're safe to see that people will be held responsible and we can start healing our country for this rift, at least part of it, that Donald Trump has done to us with his own paramilitary jackboot thugs. And I'm not going to quote Ronald Reagan because he was as bigot as they come. And the bottom line is, we are better than all of that. We are better than all of that. And we must stand together to abolish ICE and to hold people accountable once and for all and to send a message. If you're going to do this again in the future, you're going to see what the outcome's going to be. Right now, the head of the Proud Boys, I don't know if you know this, he was serving time for his shenanigans on January 6th, where he was beating up police officers, got a pardon from the president, and made an ICE official. That's why they're not law enforcement. That's why they'll never get any respect. And that's why they need to be abolished, period. And I know we have a lot of time on this, but I think it's clear, as President Chavez said, you need to hear this 3 times. They have to go. They have to go. They're destroying our country. So I will do everything I can to get the speaker to form that committee, to get myself appointed. I've already talked to Congressman Meeks. He's a former prosecutor. He wants to be on it too. So we can build from there and make this happen. Thank you.
So answering as to what I would do is, if I am the elected congresswoman for this district, the first thing we need to do is have robust oversight hearings and hold every single person accountable in both Homeland Security and ICE for the illegal actions that they had instituted since day one here. We also need to look at the budget appropriation and reconciliation of it, of what they've been doing in those 2 different departments, because we don't have a money problem in this country or a priorities problem. And right now what they're doing is they're funding both of these different departments in order to terrorize people instead of to actually help people. And that's what the role of government's for, is to make life better for their citizens and to protect them. So we're not going to take anything away in terms of making sure that people are safe and protected, but we're going to do it the right way. With immigration, $170 billion that has been allocated over the next 5 years in order to militarize our immigration system could be much better spent in a compassionate humanitarian system that allows for a path to citizenship. It's our responsibility as well to investigate the reasons why and our part in mass migration and terrorism against the United States. Our country, over the past 100 years or more, has been responsible for destabilizing regimes and economies of other countries and not had any responsibility for it, and that has caused a lot of the issues that we see today. Those need to be addressed as well. Thank you.
There's no doubt that ICE is out of control right now. And ICE is out of control because they report to the White House, and the White House thinks it can do whatever it wants. Congress has so much power, they just choose not to use it. Because Jeff Van Drew thinks his boss is Donald Trump, not you. ICE is right now operating in a way where they are undermining local law enforcement, and we should invest in local law enforcement. They know their streets, they know their neighbors. These agents, they are making things worse. There is no doubt about it. Families are afraid to go to church, to go to school, to go to work. Windows being smashed, people being shot without accountability. So Congress needs to start asking questions and saying, no more funding until you make huge changes. These agents, they think they have total immunity. That doesn't exist in our Constitution and in our legal code. It only exists right now because we don't have checks and balances. And we haven't had an immigration problem in this country for a long time. It's been broken. Our healthcare system too. We have to get to the root cause of the issue here. $170 billion budget for ICE with no accountability is not the path forward that makes sense for fixing this. But it is not an either or also. We can have a secure border and we can treat people in a humane way. in a way that respects their rights and their dignity and presents a path forward. Because right now, for a lot of people, they're trying to do this process the right way, but they don't have that option. They don't have that ability. So yes, we need to put funds towards actions that will actually solve the issues, instead of just fanning the flames of hate and of danger in our communities. And we need to recognize that it cannot be an immigration system that is based on a White House that wants to protect their culture. A White House that thinks of the US as a place where only certain people have the same rights they do. People from certain countries, certain cultures. That is un-American, and it is offensive to every single one of us. So the reality is that it cannot go on just like this, where Congress shrugs when another person is afraid to leave their house to go into their community. People who are working hard, who are not committing crimes. There's a way to solve this, but it cannot happen if ICE goes on, and the reform needs to be sweeping. It cannot be Band-Aid solutions. It has gone too far. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm going to ask one more question before I invite my colleagues up to ask a couple rapid-fire questions as we conclude tonight. But this question is very, very dear to me as someone who works in healthcare, someone who works every day ardently in the community, getting people screened, making sure people have access to care. What will you do in the role to make sure and to continue to keep the foot on the gas to make sure people have access to healthcare? With all the talks around cuts, all the talks around people not having prescriptions, and even just looking at the higher rate of cancer diagnosis in certain demographics, if you are elected, what will you do to make sure that the people that you serve will have access to care? Actually, we can start back again.
Oh, here we go. Well, first off, I support Medicare for all. And I think that is really important. We are the richest country in the world, and yet we have millions of people uninsured and underinsured. So yes, I support Medicare for all. If you want to keep your private health insurance, go for it. Fine. You have enough money to do that, fine. But I support Medicare for all. And I think the first thing we do, though, when we get into office after November, after we win the election and beat Van Drew, we restore the ACA subsidies. If you don't know what ACA is, that's basically Obamacare. And so the big beautiful bill took away those subsidies. Those subsidies need to be restored right away. That's thousands of dollars for most people. Thousands of dollars. And it's going to cause chaos within our country. We already know the cost of living is skyrocketing. After November, it's going to be even worse. And I think when it comes to healthcare, and thank you for what you do, one of the things I do in working with Atlantic Cape Community College is supporting the nursing program, which is so important. And you mentioned the environment. That is an important role. And right now, we have Van Drew and Trump rolling back restrictions on oil and gas. And we've seen the history. We know what happens. Right here in New Jersey, there are clusters of cancer because of deregulation on oil, gas, and other chemical companies. And often it is in minority communities. It is wrong, and the fact that we're still doing that today is absurd. And last thing I just want to say about Medicare for All is that, of course, that covers the entire body. That it covers mental, that it covers vision and dental. And, you know, as mayor of Cape May, we increased the insurance for our employees. This is something I worked on for many years, millions and millions of dollars. I worked on this very specifically for our employees. Before I was mayor, they did not have dental and vision. Now they do. They have better coverage and less expensive coverage. And I'm really proud that I have worked tirelessly to make sure that the people I'm responsible for have good health care coverage. Thank you.
So you can go to my website, timalexander4congress.com, and you'll see the details of my plan. But in sum, it is to allow everyone to buy into Medicare at any age. And I use myself as an example where my wife and I pay about $1,600 a month for health insurance. That's not including our dental and eyeglass. We pay that on a quarterly basis. So when we ran a model, we created and ran a model, how that compared to Medicare, the first thing it told us is we have to roll in all the subsidies into one. A through D has to become one plan. You have one body, one plan. Then we ran the numbers and it showed that Anna and I were paying a little bit more than half of what we're currently paying. Then we ran it for my 38-year-old daughter and my 36-year-old son, and we kept going down to my 35-year-old daughter, and each time it was less and less. So it was a no-brainer for me, and what was the outcome? The benefit was that Medicare becomes stronger, and eventually over about 10 years or so, people who are 64 and older don't have to pay any additional money for Medicare. And that to me was the telling tale right there, that we are pandering to insurance companies when it comes to healthcare in this country. And when I pitched this idea to another Congress representative, that person told me, you're going to have lobbyists from the health insurance down and around the corner from your office. And I said, they'll wait there all day. We'll treat them better than Georgia. We'll give them some water and some sandwiches. Because we're not going to yield on this. This takes courage, it takes conviction, but it also takes that you've experienced it. You know, not being born with a silver spoon in your mouth makes you have to earn things and understand things and figure out how you can work and make things better. And that is the sole purpose of a person in Congress, except for Jeff Van Drew, who doesn't seem to get it. And if we're working for this and we can make this happen, it's going to improve lives. But day one, the first day in office, I expect that we're going to have a blue wave in November. But if we're blessed with a blue tsunami and we have a veto-proof House, we repeal the we repeal the one big ugly bill. I had to change that because I'm in church. But the bottom line is, we can do that. It takes conviction, it takes courage, and not the fear of Donald Trump. If Donald Trump could dump all the money he wants in this district, Jeff Van Drew is still Jeff Van Drew. And so he's not, I don't care how many people he make aware of him, he's not going to have anything, he does not have anything that he can run on and be proud of. He's got 2 bills passed in his name only, renaming post offices. So that's a pitiful, pitiful person to be your representative, and that's why we got where we are with respect to that one big ugly bill, and we must repeal it, and then we must tackle health insurance and make it affordable for everybody. Medicare for all is the first step in doing that.
So as you heard from my opening, healthcare is extremely important to me and always has been. One thing you didn't hear from me is that it's been a part of my life, my entire life, because my mom was the supervisor of the operating room right at Atlantic City Medical Center, right down the way there. So I'm a proponent of the first thing we need to do once we get into Congress is reverse the horrible actions of the One Big Beautiful Bill so that we reinstate the ACA subsidies as well as removing the work requirements on Medicaid. Because health insurance is a human right. It shouldn't be based on your job. It shouldn't be based on where you live. It shouldn't be based on how much money you have. And that's why I'm a supporter of Medicare for all on the pathway to universal health care. It needs to be comprehensive, where it covers the entire body, eyes, teeth, ears, but also robust mental health, because we have a mental health crisis in this country and we don't talk about it enough. We also need to make sure that women have access, and men, to full reproductive health care covered by health insurance. And then long-term care, so our seniors can age with dignity, regardless if they want to stay at home or if they wish to go to a facility. But it also needs to be equitable. We do know from studies that communities of color have a lower mortality rate across the line that white communities do, and that's not fair. It's not right. We also know that women's health care has been severely underfunded and under-researched compared to men's health care. My daughter likes to tell me all the time, you know why Joanna doesn't really work on you? It's because it works on men and we're different. I'm like, okay, that makes sense. And that's one of the things we need to do. It needs to be equitable across the board. And to speak to what Christian had said is, with all the diagnoses with certain demographics and cancer and all of that, all the research that was taken away with the One Big Beautiful Bill and DOGE, that needs to be reinstated. We have some of the best research facilities in the world here. Why aren't we using them? Why aren't we funding them to make sure that life is better for everybody, not just the super rich? As I said again and again, we don't have a money problem, we have a priorities problem, and it's time for the priority to stop being giving tax breaks to corporations and millionaires so that they can continue to get the $70 trillion they have over the last 50 years at the expense of the working and the middle class. As again, healthcare is a human right, and I'm a proponent for these policies to move forward into true universal healthcare, since we're the only developed nation in the world that does not offer that to its citizens.
Well, I do support a pathway to universal healthcare coverage. I think at the same time, the most urgent issues right now are restoring funding for Medicaid. $1 trillion cut to Medicaid from the Big Beautiful Bill that is devastating South Jersey and the country. Making sure that Medicare is comprehensive with dental, hearing, and vision. Restoring ACA tax credits, and strengthening the ability of the government to negotiate drug prices. If you all might remember, during the Biden administration, there was a big push to cut down the price of insulin. That worked pretty well. That same pressure should be applied to other drugs, because the reality is, big pharma companies, they're making record profits. They're also donating to campaigns to these politicians, and these politicians are trading their stocks. So the corruption is a piece of that as well. We need to also have a VA system that is funded. It is disgraceful that veterans do not get the care that they deserve. They have sacrificed so much, and there are 35,000 plus in this district. The VA has been gutted under Jeff Andrews' watch. So I'm in favor of making sure that the VA has the funding that is required to treat veterans with respect. And women's health care right now is absolutely under attack. We do not need a bunch of men in Washington telling women what to do with their bodies. That is not acceptable. We should codify Roe v. Wade. We should make sure that the legal system that right now is represented by extremists trying to take away medicine for women's health cannot stand. And we do need to look at the fact that the data shows us here in Atlantic City and around the country, there is a lack of equity. If you look at the rates of mortality for new black mothers here in Atlantic City, we need to have a healthcare system that works for everyone, not just part of the population, not just the part of the population that is powerful and connected to members of Congress. We need to make sure it's comprehensive and respectful of the diverse community that we have. The last thing I'll say is, I worked at USAID. We did global health work there. Right now, we're in a moment where we might have an Ebola crisis in our country. Think about that. Part of the problem is that we're not talking to the world about healthcare. And health crises, they do not know borders. We know that from COVID. So we need to restore funding for that kind of work so that we can have that relationship with other countries to coordinate, to make sure that we can protect our citizens before it becomes a more expensive and deadly crisis here at home. The fate of us is intertwined when it comes to healthcare. It's not just about one city, one district, one state, one country. We have to recognize that. Thank you.
Thank you. So we're going to move forward into the last portion of our program, where we're going to have some rapid fire questions, and these questions, or the answers, will be 2 minutes. And so I am going to bring up my NAACP colleague, Dr. Sarhan. She's going to come up and ask a couple questions, and then following her, Marilyn. And then Guy. Yes. So Dr. Sarhan, and then Reverend Miller, and then Mr. McQueen. So, all right. So, Doc, you're up.
Thank you, Christian, and thank you to all of our candidates for being here. My name is Miriam, and I'm a proud NAACP member. I've been a member since 2020, and we do appreciate your time and exercising your civic duty to be here. My first question for you today is, how would you protect District 2's coastal communities from flooding, extreme weather, rising insurance costs, and other related threats? We'll start with Mr. Mullen.
So I've been doing this for the last 8 years as mayor, and it's something that I'm proud of the work that we've done. Like I said before, we have gotten $25 million for one seawall project. Right now, we are doing another $8 million project through a street grant on another portion of the seawall. But I got to tell you, one of the, how long do we have?
2 minutes.
2 minute thing. One of the projects that I'm very proud of is through the infrastructure bill, which was passed by, obviously, Joe Biden in a bipartisan manner. That made so many local mayors look like heroes. It did so much good work. Removal of lead pipe, something that we don't think about but affects our daily lives and our drinking water. Gave money to water plants. It gave money to us in our desalinization plant. It helped replace a lot of storm drains. And where we have flooding along the coast, especially here in Atlantic City, we need to engineer our way out of this. Yes, we need to fix the climate change issue. And again, that is something that I'm working with the Cape May Point Arts and Science Center. We actually have Rutgers has a meter on the sea level rise at the Science Center, which is a wonderful program. But as mayor, we have tackled this issue, and what I've seen is what works. The infrastructure bill worked. It gave people the opportunity to take care of the actual issues. Now that it's expired, most of the funding has gone away. You're seeing now, look at the roads. Okay, we know what the roads look like. A lot of that money is gone. And Trump and Van Drew are no longer funding that. We need to fund our infrastructure, or we'll never be able to fix the flooding. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Alexander, 2 minutes.
Thank you. So, as I said earlier, we repeal the one big ugly bill. That restores beach replenishment money right out of the gate, which, by the way, Van Drew voted to end in his own backyard. But there was a study done by New Jersey a few years back that calculated the problem from Monmouth County down to Cape May County for beach erosion. And it came up with suggestions on what can be done. And it seems as though because nobody could agree on what we could do, we did nothing. So I want to bring that study back out, and there are, even though Trump has killed anything with Biden and Obama's name on it, including the infrastructure bill, he impounded all the money, which means it's no longer there. But he's not the smartest guy you want to meet, and that there are 2 additional infrastructure funding packages that we can tap into. So we don't immediately get the one big ugly bill repealed. We could carve out the provisions and fund it through those infrastructure packages. They're there, they're replenished every year through the budget. And we could fight for that money to come back to New Jersey, particularly South Jersey, and help us save our communities. It's not just about protecting multi-million-dollar homes on a boardwalk. It's about the water that comes in and attempts to meet the bay in Atlantic City, and it wipes out everything in between. It's about wiping our homes blocks away from the ocean. We have to realize that this is an issue for everybody. It is not just for the uber rich, and we must act accordingly with all due haste. So by tapping into that infrastructure money, we can get these things done. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Reese, 2 minutes.
Thank you. So one of the things we know is that for every dollar we spend in any kind of preventative or proactive measures, it saves us $1.75 in repair work. So one of the things that we would do is reinstate the beach replenishment funding that was eliminated from the One Big Beautiful Bill, but not only to focus on beach replenishment, but also flood mitigation techniques, the dune replenishment, and also protecting our low-lying coastal areas throughout the entire district, because we have flooding everywhere in this district. Partnering with the Army Corps of Engineers for plans that can ensure that our coastal areas and low-lying areas are not consistently being impacted by storms. And making sure that any FEMA funds are equitably distributed to areas in need and not politicized and held back. But the one thing we need to do is we also need to address the causes of this, which is climate change. Eliminating the fossil fuel subsidies so that we can put that money towards and require them to fund renewable energy sources so we can stop the damage that the fossil fuel industry is doing to our environment, and we can invest in renewable energy that will be better for all of us.
Mr. Weiner, 2 minutes.
Well, FEMA right now is on the chopping block, and the Trump administration is looking at potentially cutting its workforce by 50%. Here's the reality. Heaven forbid, the next time there's a Hurricane Sandy in our area, the cost of repairing that with human lives, with billions of dollars, will be that much worse if your member of Congress doesn't have your back when it comes to FEMA. We need to make sure that it is funded, it is a smart investment, it is the right thing to do. Doing replenishment, Jeff Andrew, he took a page out of Donald Trump's playbook. He created a problem, failed to get funding for the first time in almost 30 years, and then he walked around and said, look, I'm here to save the day. He should have done his job in the first place. When you're a member of Congress, your leverage is your vote, and you have to use that leverage to bring federal investments into your community. Whether it's infrastructure, healthcare, sustainability, you name it, that is your job. We also have to recognize that I think there's a way to make the case around sustainable action that is not just about protecting the environment, because that matters, but the reality is right now, life is unaffordable. Another piece of this is an investment in making our energy bills lower, in making it clear that we can have sustainable future here in South Jersey, and a future that decreases the pressure on our pocketbooks by investing in clean energy programs, having clean energy tax credits. Right now, Jeff Andrew, Donald Trump, we're going backwards. We're doubling down on old energy that is dirty and that is inefficient. We should be doing the opposite. But Congress needs to start pushing, because the reality is this White House will not do it willingly. I also just want to say that we started a war with Venezuela for oil executives, for their profits and their bank accounts. We should have a system where our energy concerns are about working families, not about big corporations. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next question. What role should Congress play in housing affordability? Mr. Mullick, 2 minutes.
There we go, okay. First, we need to end hedge funds from being able to purchase thousands of homes at a time. That is massively increasing the price of housing. And again, this is another issue where I'm not just talking about canned speeches that I've memorized. This is something that I have done and been involved with directly. The Cape May Housing Authority, we are working on close to a $40 million project to help increase housing in Cape May, which is not it was not an easy thing to do. I have experienced the red tape and bureaucracy that is exactly what I will take on in Congress. It is stopping municipalities that want to build homes from actually building them, and it's disgraceful. So in Congress, that'll be one of the first things that we work on, because we know that housing is the backbone of the middle class. Yes, after the Great Depression, what were the things that helped build the middle class? Housing and energy. Two things that Van Drew and Trump are absolutely failing on. And that is why the middle class is shrinking.